Welcome to the 24th edition of the Tempo Storm Shadowverse Meta Snapshot, the second one for the Darkness over Vellsar expansion. While there were not any balance changes at all at the end of April, we are still seeing a meta shift based on deck popularity alone. For example, in the last month, Sanctuary Haven and Bike Dragon have developed a strange relationship. Bike Dragon's dominance caused a surge of Sanctuary Haven, Bike Dragon's hard counter. Predictably, Bike Dragon dropped in ladder play, but this meant that, in turn, Sanctuary Haven dropped as well. As one goes, so goes the other. Meanwhile, Sekka and Loxus Forest have remained rather unchallenged at the top of the ladder. Evolved Blood has snuck into the spotlight due to its consistency, a trend that has given decks such as Amulet Haven, Evolved Dragon, and Spell Boost Rune favorable matchups into Evolved Blood a chance to thrive. But all those decks are being kept in check by the Forestcraft decks, so they may have to wait for additional reinforcements from the upcoming mini expansion. This power dynamic has led to a rather diverse meta, with 6 out of the 8 classes being well represented in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 spectrum. Before we go into the details of the tier list in Darkness over Vellsar, remember to like and subscribe to our Tempo Strategy YouTube channel for the latest decks and strategy content. The 2 Forestcraft representatives, Sekka Forest and Loxus Forest, are still at the top of Tier 1 in this month's Shadowverse Meta Snapshot. The composition of the deck remains mostly the same as last month, with Arya, Miasma Fairy, Shamu and Shama, and Alberta dealing chip damage, while Windfall Fae acts as the draw engine, and Sekka, Fatebound Fox working in combination with bounce cards to finish the game. With Bike Dragon's decrease in popularity, Sekka Forest is in an even better position in the meta, especially given its favorable matchups against popular newcomers such as Evolved Blood, Evolved Dragon, and Amulet Haven. Be sure to check out our Sekka Forest guide on TempoStorm.com from our professional player and Meta Snapshot writer Essia. Loxus Forest returns as the number 2 deck in this month's Meta Snapshot. Players have been experimenting with an Nacelle Loxus hybrid build, dropping amulet generators like Quixotic Adventurer and Vagabond Lizard in favor of Reclusive Ponderer and Aaron, Forever Brilliant. This allows the deck to run Fairy Flowering as a finisher instead of Sukuna, Mighty Maltier, which gives Loxus OTK potential against its toughest matchup, Sanctuary Haven. Despite its favorable matchups into all decks except Sekka Forest in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 spectrum, the difficulty in piloting the deck holds back its performance somewhat. Bike Dragon rounds out this Meta Snapshot's top tier. The deck's experiencing flashbacks to its lifespan in Eternal Awakening, the deck stagnated somewhat while other decks improved and learned to handle Bike Dragon's damage potential. Sanctuary Haven, Bike Dragon's primary counter, has risen to the challenge and has kept Bike Dragon from being too successful. Bike Dragon is still a scary deck, and it may surge back, just like it did in the last expansion when the meta favors the deck once again. Now let's look at Tier 2, starting at the top of the tier with Artifact Portal. The decline of Bike Dragon, Artifact Portal's most unfavorable matchup, has given the deck room to develop. It's at the very edge of pushing into Tier 1. There's no consensus on which and how many of the 4PP, 5PP artifact generators to run, with Rebel Against Fate and Mecha Arm Mechanic being the most common options right now. While the deck performs quite well on paper, its complexity makes it difficult to pilot optimally, thus making it perhaps a little too draining for continuous play in long laddering sessions and in a tournament setting. The second deck of note in Tier 2 is Evolved Blood, which has spiked in popularity recently. Similar to its previous iterations, its goal is to trigger as many evolve effects as possible, then burst down the opponent with Grimnir, Voidwrought Wind, and Seax Heavenly Howl. While the deck may not have the best matchups, it does not rely on drawing into key activators early, like other Tier 1 and 2 decks do, so the deck is more consistent. Evolved Blood is also relatively easy to play and is less prone to misplays and poor decisions, which results in overall better performances on ladder. Both Forest decks remain as great laddering picks. Loxus has a better matchup spread compared to Sekka Forest, but it is slightly unfavored in the direct head-to-head matchup. Bike Dragon is also a good pick due to a rather even matchup spread, but you may have a very difficult time when the horde of Sanctuary Haven players return to the ladder. If you can draw Arya, Fae, and Slugger, play Sekka Forest to climb. If you can't draw multiple specific cards on demand, but you believe in your gameplay, play Loxus Forest to climb. If you are new to the game, play Evolved Blood or Evolved Dragon, since those are more straightforward decks. If you want to climb less effectively on average but want to expand your brain, play Artifact Portal. If you want to climb less effectively on average and shrink your brain while having fun, play Amulet Haven. The Darkness over Vellsar meta has yet to settle. While Evolved Blood has become more popular, it still doesn't feel like the strongest deck out there, and its popularity is likely going to dwindle over time. Decks such as Amulet Haven and Spellboost Rune have picked up the pace, and they may continue to grow as players learn the ins and outs of the decks. Spike Dragon is still around, waiting for a chance to strike as soon as the moment is right. The mini expansion for Darkness over Vellsar is due at the end of the month. Some of the up-and-coming decks can use a few cards to complete their toolkits and to open up additional options and allow them to shake up the meta. Shadowcraft in particular can use some form of last word support once more to put the class back on the radar. Given that the pace of the game has gotten faster these days, where games can end on turn 7 and 8, the player who goes first has a significant advantage. Hopefully the mini expansion will tackle this problem. Having more tools for card draw and tutors can help make decks more consistent, especially since a lot of decks in the meta rely on 1 or 2 key cards, and failure to draw those cards usually means a loss. Remember to check out our website regularly for an exclusive card reveal later, and don't miss out on other Shadowverse content, from vying guides to in-depth deck write-ups covering Sekka Forest, Artifact Portal, and Bike Dragon. See you next month in the mini expansion.